Welcome to Voices from the Abyss. If you're listening tonight, you're not alone. Beneath every stretch of open water, there are depths we've never seen and things we've never discovered. Tonight's story begins in complete darkness, miles below the surface, where something ancient is still moving. So settle in, get comfortable, and listen closely, because far below you, something is awake. Before we begin, we've got a special guest joining us tonight. One of the voices you'll hear belongs to the creator of Gurgen Gaming, a YouTube channel focused on budget-friendly terrain building, miniature painting, battle reports, and all kinds of tabletop gaming projects. He's a good friend of mine, and I thought it'd be fun to have him lend his voice to tonight's story. His content can be found over on YouTube at Gurgen Gaming. That's Gergen Gaming. He's got jokes. Let's get to it. Tonight's story isn't about monsters. It isn't about ghosts. It's about something far more real. Thousands of feet of solid rock, absolute darkness, and a single rope that stands between life and death. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what waits in the dark. It's realizing the person you trusted to lead you out has already decided you're never coming home. So turn the lights down, get on your flippers, and if you enjoy stories that leave you afraid to go into the bathtub, don't forget to subscribe. This is The Guide Rope. Cave diving requires a particular kind of trust. Not just the casual trust of lending someone $20 or letting them drive your car, but the kind of trust that could mean the difference between life and death. "You nervous?" Tom asked. His voice came through the comms unit thin and metallic, like he was talking through a Pringles can stuffed with steel wool.
"Deeply,"
Jody said.
"I'm shaking so hard I might crack my tank on the wall."
"You'd never. You love that tank. You named it."
"I did not name it."
"Pamela?"
"That was one time and I was dehydrated."
"Ha!" Tom laughed, and even through the distortion, it was the same laugh Jody had heard since they were 8 years old. A little too loud and abrupt. "Hey, can I ask you something?"
"Sure."
"Why did your parents name you Jody?"
"Here we go."
"I'm just saying. It's a girl's name."
"It's not a girl's name."
"My aunt has a dog named Jody."
"Your aunt's dog was a golden retriever."
"She's a lovely golden retriever. Very feminine. Very..."
How many times do we need to have this conversation?
"All I'm saying is, there's a resemblance around the eyes." Jody said something that the comms unit fortunately distorted beyond recognition, and Tom laughed again. The passage opened ahead of them into a wider chamber. Jody's torch swept across the ceiling and caught the limestone formations above them like frozen chandeliers. Even now, Even knowing the dark, the depth, and the weight of the rock above them, he felt it. The feeling he only found in cave diving. Like discovering a gift that the universe created specifically to leave you speechless. The guide rope trailed behind them, anchored back at the entry point, a thin fluorescent orange line threading through the dark. A glorified piece of string that was literally their lifeline. Out of habit, Jody subconsciously noted its existence every few minutes, just to confirm it was still there. Chamber 4, Tom said, consulting his dive board. You doing okay on air? Jody checked.
60%.
Good. There's a passage on the left here I want to show you. Comes out into something that'll make you forget your own name.
Bold claim.
I'm a bold man.
You're an annoying man.
Funny. Jenny tells me the same thing. She says hi, by the way. Tom said, a small silence sitting between them. Okay, let's go. They had been diving together for 9 years. Tom had gotten into it first, the same way he got into any hobby, with a headfirst dive straight into the deep end. Within a year, he had the certifications, the equipment, and you couldn't look anywhere in his apartment without seeing literature on the subject. He would talk about it like a religion, with a kind of private joy that made Jody curious despite himself. Tom's passion was contagious, which persuaded Jody to take the courses the following spring. He'd been terrified his first 3 dives, and by the 4th, he was hooked. 10 years ago, Jody had stood at the altar in a rented suit and watched Tom marry Jenny with the perfect mix of happiness and hungover goodwill that defined the best man role. And he had meant every word of the toast he gave. He had meant it about Tom being the best person he knew. The passage Tom led them into narrowed quickly. Jody turned his body sideways, controlling his breathing the way he'd been trained, feeling the rock graze his tank. The torch ahead of him bobbed and disappeared around a bend, and then reappeared. Tom waiting in a slightly wider section, gesturing for him to follow. Come on, we're almost there. Jody pushed through and came out into the chamber Tom had promised. He understood immediately. The ceiling soared. Relatively speaking, 8 or 10 feet in a cave felt like a cathedral. And the formations here were breathtaking. Columns of stone surrounded them, meeting in the middle like hands clasped together. The walls were rippled and pale in a way that Jody had never seen. His torch moved across it slowly.
What's my name again?
He said. Told ya.
Yeah, you told me.
They floated there for a moment in silence. Tom and Jody, best friends since they were 8 years old. At this point, they didn't need words. Unlike when hanging out with others, they were able to just shut the hell up for a minute and comfortably enjoy the silence. Below them, The silt lay undisturbed on the chamber floor. Jody clocked the guide rope threading back through the passage they'd come from, the orange line disappearing into the dark. Tom broke the silence with a snort.
What?
Jody said.
Nothing. Just thinking.
Dangerous habit.
Yeah.
A pause.
Hey, you remember Dave Kowalski's bachelor party? When you lost the rental car and tried to convince us it had been stolen?
Jody snorted back.
I didn't lose it. I misidentified it in a parking structure.
You told the police it was a white sedan.
It was similar to a white sedan.
It was a green minivan.
The lighting was bad.
Tom laughed, and then let the laugh settle. And when he spoke again, his voice had that same playful tone that always kept Jody's spirits up.
Yeah. That was almost as funny as the time you slept with Jenny.
The words landed strangely. Jody's brain was trying to sort out the joke from the abrupt statement. He almost said what? Not because he hadn't heard it. Because his mind kept sliding away from the meaning, like a foot sliding off an algae-covered rock. Then it caught up. He turned around. Tom wasn't smiling. Jody thought he had seen all of Tom's facial expressions over the last 3 decades. This was a look he had never seen on Tom's face before. His eyes were flat and certain, as if he had been waiting for this moment. A dive knife reflected in his right hand. The guide rope was between them.
Tom.
The knife moved. A single motion, planned and final. The orange line separated, and the two ends drifted apart with a slowness that felt obscene. Then Tom kicked. His fins hit the silt floor on the downstroke, and it rose in a column. A slow explosion of particulate that bloomed outward and upward and swallowed the chamber whole. Jody's torch halting at suspended matter in every direction. A brown-gray cloud with no floor, no ceiling, no walls, no rope, and no Tom. But most dreadfully, no way back to the passage they'd come through. He heard Tom's fins through the water grow fainter. Then he was alone, stranded. Jody tried to stay calm. He had been trained for this. He stayed still while the comms unit filled with silence, and he checked his air. 53%. The silt would not settle for hours, maybe longer. He'd read accounts of cave divers losing visibility in silted passages and waiting completely still for 4 or 5 hours for enough clarity to navigate. He didn't have that kind of air. He needed to find the passage. Jody moved slowly, one hand trailing the wall, the other extended ahead of him. The brown fog pressed in on all sides, rendering his torch useless. He found a gap in the wall and pushed through it. It came out into a smaller chamber. He felt his way around the perimeter. It was the wrong shape. He backed out. He tried not to think about Jenny. He found another passage and followed it for 30 feet before the ceiling dropped sharply, trending downward away from the entry. He reversed carefully, keeping his kicks shallow. He thought about her anyway. It had been 8 months ago. A single night. A catastrophic failure of every value he thought he held. The kind of thing that seemed to exist outside of normal time and space while it was happening, and then crashed back into the current timeline with devastating permanence afterwards. He had told himself Tom would never know. He had spent every single minute of every single day trying to convince himself that for the last 8 months. What he hadn't let himself think about was what he was thinking about now, in the dark, with his air ticking down. Was that he should have told him. Not for his own relief, not to unburden himself, but because Tom deserved to know. Because 32 years meant Tom deserved the truth from Jody's mouth, instead of however he'd eventually found out. Because the cover-up was its own second betrayal, quieter and longer, which in some ways was worse.
I never meant for it to happen.
The words entered his mind with the automatic quality of a statement rehearsed too many times. It was true, but it was also almost completely besides the point.
I should have told him.
Those words hit harder. He found the wall again and followed it. Air at 44% now. He kept his breathing slow and deliberate, and kept moving. The silt was thinning slightly near the floor. He drifted lower and swept his torch in a slow arc until it caught something across the chamber. A shimmer. A faint prismatic catch of light off a surface that looked like a pressure change in the water. He crossed towards it. A gap in the far wall, low and narrow, but a gap nonetheless. And through that gap, a faint, sourceless brightening, a telltale sign of a larger space beyond. His heart lurched, and his mind raced. He would find a way to make this right. This was his second chance. He moved into the gap. The rock closed around him immediately. He exhaled fully to make himself smaller and kept moving. The passage curved. The brightening seemed closer. His hand hit solid rock. He stopped. He angled his torch forward. Stone. Unbroken, sloping gently down, sealing the passage completely. The light had been his own, bouncing back off a flat limestone face. A trick of reflection combined with desperation and wanting. He was wedged into a fissure barely wider than his shoulders, with his tank snagged on the ceiling above him. He tried to push backward, The tank snagged harder. He tried again and again, but it was useless. The rock was not going to negotiate. His air was at 31%, and he needed to be careful with it now. Jody stayed there, one arm extended, and he breathed slowly in the dark. He stopped tracking his air. He knew it didn't matter anymore. They found him on the 4th day. The recovery team worked in 2-hour rotations, mapping passages systematically from the entry point. The silt had cleared enough for navigation by day 2, but the system ran deeper than the initial survey suggested. It wasn't until late afternoon on the 4th day that Murphy spotted the gap in Chamber 4's eastern wall. Low and narrow, easy to miss. She signaled Seabrook. The fissure angled sharply after the first few feet, and the torchlight disappeared into the bend without highlighting anything. Murphy went in as far as she could and backed out.
"He's in there,"
she said.
"Past where I can reach. The passage doglegs, and I can't get around it."
They surfaced, consulted with the coordinator, and came back with a second team. Another 6 hours of work. The fissure had to be approached from multiple angles. At a certain point, the rescue team realized that in order to recover this body, they would have to break the collarbone, which, in itself, was almost impossible. Even if they had gotten to him in time, they wouldn't have been able to rescue him. They brought him out as the sun was going down. It was only on the surface, laid out on the rocks, that they could see how he'd been positioned. One arm extended forward, reaching, fingers slightly curled. In the debrief, Seabrook sat quietly, reflecting on the recovery before asking,
Do you think he knew that he wasn't getting out?
Murphy thought about the arm, the way it had been reaching toward a wall that was never going to move, in a passage too tight to turn around in absolute darkness. "Yeah," she said. He knew.
How long
Long enough. She picked up her coffee and walked away. Thank you for listening to Voices from the Abyss. If you enjoyed tonight's story, make sure to follow so you don't miss what rises next. And if you find yourself near the water, listening, just remember, not everything beneath the surface is asleep. Good night.